Discretion is advised. Your mama black.
This program contains language and sequences some viewers may find disturbing.
Right!
Don't shoot him. Don't shoot him. He has no weapon. He has no weapon. Don't shoot him. Don't shoot him. Don't shoot him. He didn't do anything. He doesn't have a gun. He has a TBI. He's not going to do anything to you guys. He just took his medicine. Keith, don't let them break the windows. Come on out the car. Keith, don't do it. Keith, get out the car. Keith, don't you do it. Don't you do it. Keith, don't you do it. Did you shoot him? Did you shoot him? Did you shoot him? He better not be fucking dead. He better not be fucking dead. I know that fucking much. I know that much. He better not be dead. I'm not gonna come near you. I'm gonna record though. I'm not coming near you. I'm gonna record though. He better be alive. You better be alive. How about that? Yes, we're over here at 9453 Lexington Court. These are the police officers that shot my husband, and he better live. He better live, because he didn't do nothing to them. He good. Ain't nobody touch nobody, so they all good. I know he better live. I know he better live. How about that? I'm not coming to you guys, but he better live. He better live. Y'all hear this and you see this, right? He better live. He better live. I swear he better live. Yep. He better live. He better fucking live. He better live. Where is... He better fucking live, and I can't even leave the damn... I ain't going nowhere. I'm in the same damn spot. What the fuck? That's okay. Did y'all call the police? Did y'all call an ambulance?
They tased him first and then shot him. Talk about he got a motherfucking gun. You white fucker. You know damn well my motherfucking daddy ain't had no motherfucking gun. Hey. You ugly ass motherfuckers. Ugly as hell. All of them ugly. Fuck 12. Fuck your daughters. Fuck your damn wives. Fuck your mamas. Fuck your sons.
Don't forget to fuck the
Fuck y'all dogs. Y'all know y'all white crackers fuck dogs.
No, they fuck horses.
Damn motherfucking horses. No, the women fuck horses. The niggas be fucking the dogs.
Guys, is there anything we should know?
No.
You just know that all white people are fucking devils.
And make sure you air that one.
Air that shit.
Now. Don't take that
All
down.
white cops are fucking devils and white people. All are fucking devils. I don't like none of you.
The city is preparing for another night of protests. Just within the last hour, we learned tonight there will be another curfew in effect.
This is Wakron Borum walking into CMPD headquarters. He has now been charged with the shooting death of Justin Scott, that young 26-year-old that was shot and killed on Wednesday night during those protests.
I still say that this is not Charlotte that's out here. These are outside entities that are coming in and causing these problems. These are not protesters, these are criminals.
There's a lot of things there. We're evaluating them, and at some point we'll make a further statement to the public about our position.
Any timeline on that?
We're working on it diligently. We just got on the case yesterday, and so everybody's got a head start but us, but we'll make up the ground.
Charlotte's mayor now, Jennifer Roberts, has declared a curfew beginning tonight at midnight, going to 6 a.m.
I was out on the streets last night, listening to folks who were there, and was grateful to see people voicing their opinions peacefully.
Can you imagine for a moment if we had this many black police shooting white folk in the back? What would your response be?
Our officers observed a subject, Mr. Keith Lamont Scott, inside a vehicle at the apartment complex. He exited the vehicle armed with a handgun. The officers observed him get back into that vehicle, at which time they approached the vehicle to engage this subject. The officers gave loud, clear verbal commands, which were also heard by many of the witnesses.
We've got the instigators that are coming in from the outside. I mean, you've heard reports even last night. They were coming in on buses from out of state. If you go back and look at some of the arrests that were made last night, I can about say that probably 70% of those had out-of-state IDs. They're not coming from Charlotte.
If I generalized about races the way you just did about these incidents with police shootings, you would be all over me.
This is not generalization. This is specific. Walter Scott is specific.
You're saying all.
In spite of the verbal commands, Mr. Scott, as I said, exited his vehicle armed with a handgun, as the officers continued to yell at him to drop it.
By the way, as we touched this morning on our radio broadcast, I'm tired of the word protest because it's no longer a protest. In fact, I had to catch myself there just calling it a protest. It's a riot. If you're burning crap down, you're an arsonist. If you're stealing stuff, you're a thief. If you're killing people, you're a murderer.
Reverend, thank you very,
You
very
quite
much.
get my response. If you had this many white people being shot by black police, what do you think the response would be?
The same, but peaceful.
Right.
After a thorough review and given the totality of the circumstances and credible evidence in this case, it is my opinion that Officer Vinson acted lawfully.
Today, Charlotte Mecklenburg's district attorney announced the officer who shot and killed Keith Scott in September would not face charges.
No charges.
That's the decision that came down today from Charlotte prosecutors in terms of the Charlotte Mecklenburg police officer who shot and killed Keith Lamont Scott.
In Uptown were filled with protesters last night, but for the most part, they kept calm and peacefully voiced their message.
Small protests began early this evening in the Queen City.
This after the announcement was made that CMPD officer Brentley Vinson will not face charges for the shooting death of Keith Lamont Scott.
DA Andrew Murray outlined a case at a press conference today showing what he said was evidence of an ankle holster on Scott's leg. He said officers reported that Scott got out of the car with a gun in hand and ignored multiple calls to drop the weapon.
Well, yeah, right now there are only maybe a couple dozen protesters left. This protest looks to be petering out a little bit. There are some protesters over my shoulder there. Still some more protesters on the steps in front of Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Headquarters. But again, this crowd a lot smaller than it was earlier tonight. This crowd started gathering at around 7 o'clock on the steps here and growing. People here holding a moment of silence for Keith Scott before they headed down for a march through the streets of Uptown.
Hey, Brian and Kayla, we're live outside of CMPD headquarters where protesters are still gathering. The numbers have dwindled since we've been here, but they are still posted outside CMPD headquarters. Earlier tonight, at least 3 protesters were arrested while marching through the streets. The altercation happened with police officers. Police officers tried to use bikes to try and stop the protesters from marching through the streets. The protesters wanted to take over the streets and march right through. I spoke with some of the protesters asking if they watched or read about the DA announcement that they will not pursue charges against Officer Vincent. Some said that they didn't watch the DA's press conference or read about it, but some said they did, and they told me that they don't believe that there was enough evidence. Some people protesting tonight and chanting that they believe police shot Justin Carr in the protest. In fact, when we were marching through the streets, they stopped outside the Omni Hotel for a moment of silence. Some of the protesters saying that if they believe the DA had enough evidence that the investigation should have gone to trial. The protests tonight here have remained peaceful for the most part. We're handing out snacks to some of the homeless that they passed, passing out bananas. Some of the members of the Billy Graham Rapid Response Team also out here praying with people. But for the most part, everything has been peaceful at this point. As you can see, the numbers are dwindling down. We'll bring you the latest as these protests continue tonight. Live at CMPD headquarters, Lauren Dugan, Fox 46 Charlotte.
Shooting in September sparked violent protests in uptown Charlotte, costing the city millions in damage and police overtime pay.
Scott's family and their attorney responded to the announcement today.
We still have real questions about the decisions that were made that day in terms of how they confronted Keith, how they reacted to the information that he had a brain injury, and whether they used appropriate de-escalation techniques to end this situation in a way that didn't result in the loss of Keith Scott's life.
Spokespersons for the family went on to say, though they appreciate the district attorney's respect for the family, they will investigate further.
Protesters gathered right now in uptown Charlotte hours after the announcement a CMPD officer will not face charges in the deadly shooting of Keith Scott. We just learned 4 people have been arrested.
We have live team coverage for you as those protests block off streets in uptown, but we begin with NBC Charlotte's Savannah Levins. Savannah?
Hey, we want to give you a live look at Uptown right now. This is right outside the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. This group has really thinned out since it first started a couple of hours ago. A group of maybe about 80 people were out here protesting earlier this evening. Now it's trickled down significantly to maybe 20, but you can take a look for yourself. People getting in some heated conversations, others just sitting on the front steps of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Though you did mention there were a few arrests. I just spoke to police. They said they think that number actually might be up to 5 at this point. Most of those arrests were for standing in the street or blocking the streets. One was for assault, police tell me. But beyond that, it has been pretty peaceful. The organizers of this protest have repeatedly told the group to stay calm, to stay peaceful, to not get in any altercations with police, to stay out of the streets. And as you can see, it's kind of tapered off at this point in the evening. Of course, we will continue to follow this for you, and we have continued team coverage on air and online, so make sure you're following us on WCNC.com and on our Facebook page, where we were live streaming throughout the night. But for now, reporting in Uptown, I'm Savannah Levins for NBC Charlotte.
Savannah, thanks so much.
NBC Charlotte's Xavier Walton was in the thick of that crowd in Uptown tonight and has more on the mood of protesters and their clashes with police.
Emotions running rampant. This following the district attorney's decision not to file charges against the officer who shot and killed Keith Lamont Scott. As protesters marched, some aired out frustrations.
We can go back to Jonathan Farrell. This is a problem. This is a problem in Charlotte. We have had enough meetings. I have been to numerous city council meetings, talked to the mayor on a number of occasions. They know what the problem is. They know what the problem is. They know what the problem is.
A problem, but with no solution. That's where Braxton Winston says enough is enough. It's time for a change.
They're out here speaking up. They're calling for the government to come out and talk to us, the people that matter, that can answer the questions and can make real change.
As hundreds marched, tempers began boiling over and overflowing onto the streets of uptown Charlotte. Police followed on foot and on bikes, keeping demonstrators out of the streets and on sidewalks. Still, some pushing police too far. CMPD has confirmed at least 3 people have been arrested. The young woman seen yelling at police here was later put in handcuffs.
Except for the few incidences I witnessed, it seems like though people are still upset, very passionate, and still angry, for the most part, behaving with a sense of order.
NBC Charlotte's Xavier Walton reporting the protests come hours after we learned no charges would be filed against the officer who shot and killed Keith Scott. The DA also released never-before-seen surveillance footage showing Scott had a gun, along with a mountain of evidence in the case file. We'll dig through it all coming up in about 10 minutes.
Well, yes, Stephanie, we are hearing that there will be a gathering here in Marshall Park, and likely more protests will take place at some point today. The NAACP president here in Charlotte, Corinne Mack, tells us that she will take part in that march today. She was with protesters last night when 4 young people were arrested, but she says last night was overall a peaceful protest. Max says many are frustrated over the decision not to charge Officer Brentley Vinson in the death of Keith Lamont Scott, but she says people are also frustrated with what she calls a lack of action by the city council to provide more checks and balances for police officers.
I think the most important part is the contrast in him having a book versus a gun. But in my mind and in most of the community's mind, it really doesn't matter if he had a gun. It really doesn't matter if he had a gun. It really doesn't matter if he had a gun. To ensure that there is implicit bias training and dismantling racism training, to ensure that there's a policy put in place around a cop who doesn't have the camera on any approach, any interaction with a citizen of this city.
Right now, we want to show you some more live pictures from those peaceful protests going on in uptown Charlotte. This is along Trade Street. They are walking by the CAT station there on your right, and that would be the Spectrum Center, formerly, of course, Time Warner Cable Arena, there on your left. We know that the protests have been largely peaceful. It's our Colleen Harry that's actually walking with these protesters, she and her photographer. We do know that a couple of protesters were taken away in police custody, not sure why. But Colleen will have that for us coming up later. Protests, of course, gathering in the wake of the decision from the DA today not to charge the officer involved in the Keith Lamont Scott case.
Certainly, just last night, this section of Trade Street was shut down due to protesters. Now, as you can see, it's empty. That doesn't mean the community isn't still feeling the effects of the DA's decision. Tonight, fans poured into the Spectrum Center to witness the Hornets in action. Most well aware, less than 24 hours ago, protesters were marching past this very arena, expressing their displeasure with the DA's decision to not charge CMPD officer Brentley Vinson in the shooting death of Keith Scott back in September.
As a city, we must move on and move on without fear.
Kimberly Weddington said last night's protest did not sway her decision to come to tonight's game with her son. CMPD had a strong presence outside the arena. We saw officers on foot as well as patrolling the area on bicycles and motorcycles. Further outside the city, the North Carolina Highway Patrol positioned its cruisers along 277. This in case any protesters tried to take to the interstate like some did back in September.
We really wanted to connect with these folks.
CMPD's newly formed constructive conversation team was also prepared for a second night of protests. Today they reflected on yesterday's demonstrations where members of their group listened to demonstrators, some expressing very raw emotions, and then tried to answer their questions and concerns.
Walking away is really, we don't have an option to do that anymore. Those days, if they were there, they're gone. You know, we have a responsibility now to this community.
A live look at CMPD headquarters where protests were held yesterday. Officers said they hope their interactions from yesterday's protests will help relations moving forward. Reporting live uptown, Alexa Ashwell, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
It's frustrating to see people that look like you, people that act like you, people that do what you do being shot and killed, and officers aren't being held accountable.
Nigga, please. The cause is to get justice for Keith Scott and the numerous black males who have been killed by CMPD.
Why is he so stupid? Why is he so stupid?
I ask myself that every day.
Well, police officers are still out here tonight, though, really not making too many moves to end this protest, just kind of standing around watching. Meantime, protesters, as I said, are still out here tonight. Not sure how much longer this protest will last. Reporting live in Charlotte, I'm Samina Engel, WXII 12 News.